Creative Business and Entrepreneurship, chaired by me. And we're going to kick off with Adrian Bowyer, which is a real treat for me because I've heard so much about what's going on in that part of the world. I think the big story about this part of the agenda is the story about the disconnect between innovation and commercialisation, getting ideas to market, and I think that sometimes has been oversold as a narrative because I've come across fantastic spin-outs, companies using technology in the UK, so many great things going on, but I think it's interesting to keep that kind of question in mind when we're looking at cases of people going to market with technologies and setting up companies and some of the issues they're having to contend with. So Adrian.
Okay, we start on Choc Edge Ltd.
Okay. So you're going to kick off yourselves?
Yeah. Hi again. I'm Liang. I hope you are not bored with me. But I understand you all like chocolate. So we explore that research and also the technology development from the student project to spring of company. We are Choc Edge Ltd. So I'm the founder. Choon Yen is a co-founder of the company. So we just give you preview what are we trying to do, and technology, and also our product, and what technology capability, and what's the business opportunity for our users. Chocolate is really long history. Actually, initially it's a kind of luxury drink. It's tasty, and also sometimes it really can use kind of medicine. I think one good medicine is because keep people's happiness. When you're happy, you maybe recover more quickly. Another thing very important for economy actually have been used as money. Yeah, and you can see also offering to God and the payment to the rules. Yeah. So what our aim is to slightly change the way chocolate making compared to current industry. Yeah, actually initially chocolate is handcrafted, is personalized. So we want to get a more creative way to create chocolate, and also in that creativity we want to give people more pleasure. When they consume chocolate, that means give them more value. And another thing, we also look at, as mentioned in the early days by Emmys, chocolate actually associates people maybe eat more and feel a little bit guilty. Yeah. So we also try to address that, or use the benefit, the health element in the chocolate, but try to reduce the amount of non-health element in the chocolate. Another way we can bring out more porous chocolate. So you consume less amount of materials, but give you more happiness and sense of enjoying. This is a quite for 3D printing. This actually a lot of things exist. But for chocolate, actually 3D printing is quite new word. Yeah. So we need to study and understand these materials. This is what we do in the last 3 or 5 years. Material element, then what is property for printing, like viscosity, how material solidified, and also even in that time period, only explore specific type of chocolate. Actually, there's so many range of chocolate materials. Need to explore dark, wide, and different combination. So our focus materials definitely is one strength. Then we will use the machine to turn to the product. Another key element is software. The software drive the machine, but also we're looking at how you software to facilitate the use and helping the business to explore the technology. So our core is like to want to integrate these things to provide a solution. Hopefully we can achieve the dream like Steve Jobs has been mentioned many times today. I think that's the dream of every innovators. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Now I pass to the presentation to Choon Yen.
Just before I start, it's a bit disappointed that the design of the presentation doesn't come up in this. It's become all black and white only, with text overlapping as well. So just kind of like Liang is on the face of the Choc Edge company, and I'm kind of behind the brick wall or curtain, developing the Choc Creator, the printer that has been used for the printing of this fancy product. But again, this is not start just within the Choc Edge Limited, but it was like way back to 2007. It's a spin-off. The company or the product is spin-off from the university research project. Steve Miller has been working many years for it. And what we try to do, or what we try to achieve, is to make a chocolate, or innovative chocolate, more simpler, using a CAD drawing, convert into physical chocolate that most people can do it at home or can get it from a shop front. So talk about mass innovation, and at the moment a lot of this chocolate production is done in mass production way. Like you see in the picture, there is a conveyor belt of thousands, if not millions, of chocolate pumping out from the conveyor belt every day, and is feel its purpose for filling up people's stomachs and make everyone happy. But it's a factory production with high initial setup costs, and they have to sell in quantity. What we like to see is something that is more niche. So we are selling in customized. So it's a personalized gift, a very unique one on a very special occasion. You can print somebody's name with a heart shape next to it, next to the name for the loved one in Valentine's Day, for example. And this can be a small investment for a shop, a chocolate shop, for example, or a hotelier, to have the machine there. Somebody come in and say, I want to bring this onto a cake for my wife, for example, on her birthday. And even the machine can also be used in like fundraising activities, a trade show, having a counter there printing chocolate products, for example. And it can be a home business, or as a hobbyist, use it at home to print out something that defensive. That's what Choc Edge is about. So this is, as you can see from the desk as well, the machine is quite small, compact, and it's portable. And we tend to hope that we can have the control easier. So we are initially we use open source software, so that we can get a lot of feedback from people using it, and then from there improve it, see what we can do in the next generation machine. So the concept is easy. So basically 3-step: design it. So we can use Google SketchUp like in Google Works. They have all the tools that to design some chocolates, or using more 3D printing specialist software like Materialize software, or a CAD package like Solid Edge to produce a 3D STL file. Or in the near future, we hope to get to 2D file, DFX, and then get it prepared in a 3D printing software to generate a G code, which the machine will understand. It's a text format that most CNC machine will understand, and transfer this G code into the machine, and you know what next? It disappear before you can see it. sorry, it's a YouTube video that linked to the internet. Unfortunately, not running. It does run a bit, but you will see the demo afterwards after this presentation session. So this is just a square box that we use it as a calibration to see whether it built X and Y correctly and also in Z direction. So what we have is the printer can produce a 2.5D or 2D project outputs. We call it 2.5D and accurately. So like this really logo, we can build it to whatever height we like. So all the printing geometry will be accurate to the previous layer, so it don't fall into one direction. And we can have very unique or artistic design like the Jubilee queen head there. And we can also do it in a 3D object. For example, some of the samples on the desk there, the face we showed previously. And because it's computer control process, so we can have it printed out again and again here or in America or in Australia using the same file, and you will get the same result. So it's you always get it locally, if you like the words. So also because of the software, it's a software control. We can control the density. We can build organic structures like you see in the picture there. We can have spaghetti infill in the wall there. And in the future, we also like to be able to put multiple materials into the design. So we can have milk chocolate, dark chocolate, milk, and white chocolate to make a more interesting shape or shade as well. And possible with some icing to make it more interesting. So with this 3D printing of chocolate, we make it a lot of these new possibilities that is not possible by other processes in the past. So again, it's just a 3-step: design, prepare, print, and then edit. And pass it back to Liang.
So with all that capability, we want to explore the value. Want to help the business to grow the business, engage customer. So for that technology capability, I think one key thing actually is unique product. This technology can make a lot of unique product which other technology cannot do. So that can be immediately differentiate with other product. Then the second main point is personalization, and also personalization in front of customer. When you do a personalization, if you do it in the back end, don't communicate customer too much, I think they will lose some attraction. But we can do it in front of customer to do that personalization. So in that way, we can engage customer. Then we can capture what customer need. Then put the value. Exactly as mentioned in the early implementation, they have different customers have a different preference of value. Then we can tailor that to offer the users specific value, enhancing the experience. And also we can make change really quickly. Currently, most chocolate use molding as a tool to shape in 3D. So you can imagine when you change the product, you have to change the mold set. But for us, we'll be quite efficiently to change the product. For traditionally, again, when you buy chocolate, you normally select chocolate from the shelf. But this may be opportunity you can order, then select even the element, the design. So then the whole process is on demand. That's good for the customer, as also is fantastic opportunity for the business. So they don't have to store the chocolate product in advance. And again, chocolate is food product, they have certain limitation of product life, and better chocolate or more organic chocolate have actually less store time. But for this technology, we can provide on demand. Again, we can place the machine on the side. I think a couple of weeks ago, I go to the Belgium. Yeah, actually, I visited a few chocolate shops, and the most attractive one is their chef in the front of making the chocolate, and a lot of people will be stopped in the window looking at how they made. And also, you can see the chef actually is quite creative. Every product is different. Some even have a defect, but customer at that point is more about they can imagine who is made that. Yeah, that's the difference for machine, more traditionally mass production. So that's offer the unique shopping experience. Yeah, particularly now we're quite disconnected how things made. Yeah, and also actually originally it's like chocolate I don't know how to make. Only when I moved to this process and studied no more. A lot of other similar things. Yeah, we use computer, but how it's made we are not so sure. Yeah, we like to know a little bit more. Yeah. Then another thing, yeah, when in the shop, when if you have product on defect, the chef can make up, yeah, do certain things. So that materials won't be wasted. For that's you can do for small amount of product. Again, for our product, you can potentially reuse that materials, or you can do some making up to so reduce the waste. Then another, I think we are now in a digital world. I think we mentioned the connection between the digital product and the physical product. Particularly now, digital space connect with the design, production, service. So that's provide very efficient business operation. You can immediately get demand from the customer, then the whole process to serve that. Then another key benefit, every product data can be installed in the library. When you use it, you just search it and collect. So you can offer a lot of options. Not just digital world, everyone not like to show off, particularly the creativity, the identity, and is led working with others. We can see recently Facebook really focus on the face. They bought face recognition startup, face.com. That's the technology recognized face. But we can see there are a lot of creative things will be associated with face. I think hopefully we can move in that space. Chocolate face, we already show a few samples. I think that's enhanced the social value of the chocolate, and also we want to use that to connect people. Okay, yeah, we love chocolate and love our vision. Particularly, I think that's a dream for us to engage people, the creativity, and offer the happiness to the people. We like to working hard to provide new technology and business solutions to our users. At the end, we want to serve all the people like you. Yeah, we have a Facebook connection. We really appreciate a lot of people like us, our website. So we are very appreciate all the support provided to us. Okay, thank you very much.
We go for questions after each session. We can make them kind of real time. So any questions from the audience? I have one. How important is intellectual property to your business model?
Okay, that's a really good question. We have been asked for many times. Okay, firstly we developed. Okay, initially my motivation is to promote technology, engage people. Yeah, Then we involve students to develop project. I think the students are actually the main driving force to develop technology. While also when we study commercial business, we're looking at the intellectual property. But of course, that's quite expensive for us as a small firm. I think we can do that, but once we do that, then we have to decide quite high price for our machine or technology. So that's why we more about our passion. We want the people use. So we haven't applied intellectual property or patent. But we also found that can be the problem of 3D printing. Because all the traditional 3D printing model is that they get a patent, restrict the people to use until RepRap to break that down, then start the technology spin-off. I think we like to treat a kind of combination of way. We open a lot of things for people to use, but of course we like to protect something. I think for the moment our protection is know-how. Because we can see a lot of things. Integration takes time. We want to encourage a little bit competition. That's make ourselves lean. But our solution is integration. Like the business technology. But I think that's for the basic version. But we will plan some more advanced industrial, like multi-materials. That's where we will have some patent generated. But that is not to stop other. We still want to provide best technology to the user. That's the key drive. But in the meantime, that production is more about helping the business.
There's a point of clarification actually, Liang. When you said you saw chocolatiers in Belgium making chocolate, and that was really interesting. Are you planning, when somebody sends an order into 3D chocolate personalised thing, are you going to film that being made? So that could be part of the feature of the product. Here's your thing being made, and then it goes to the post. Are you planning that, or?
That's we actually in that digital economy project we have discussed that. That's the user experience. We already see a lot of people watch our video. That can be feasible. We can have webcam. You can watch raw model. We already hear a lot of people want to watch it when they make that product. That really make difference. Even when we print out the chocolate, when we see the chocolate emerge, then the different feeling.
Thank you very much. And to our next speaker, Adrian Bowyer, who's one of the leading lights. So this is a real pleasure and privilege to be able to introduce you.
Thank you. Right, figure out which button's right. I'm going to start with a lie. It seems a good way to start a presentation. I'm not really very interested in 3D printing. I started the RepRap project in 2004. RepRap is a portmanteau word. The RAP is short for rapid prototyping, which is what 3D printing used to be called in 2004. Rapidly changing field, rapidly changing name. The Rep is short for replication, and that's the thing that interests me. The idea of a self-replicating machine is not new. It goes back at least as far as a conversation between René Descartes and Queen Christina of Sweden, wherein Descartes proposed that living organisms were machines, and Queen Christina came back with a very perceptive question, which is, can a machine reproduce itself? Descartes thought that it probably could. Anyway, it seemed to me in around the early 2000s that we'd finally acquired a technology that had a chance of being able to copy itself, namely rapid prototyping, 3D printing as it is 8 years later. And so RepRap is a self-replicating 3D printer. That's a picture of a RepRap machine. It's a fairly small one, about so big. And it just finished printing a set of its own plastic parts, which are the white bits you can see dotted around it there. If we look at a few facts about the machine, it can copy about half of its own parts, which is a respectable proportion. You can make 60% of your own amino acids, for example. The other 40% you can't make, you have to get them from elsewhere. So RepRap can make about half its own parts. The other half, though, were deliberately designed to be widely available. In fact, most of them you can just buy in an ordinary B&Q or Homebase. One or two are a bit more specialised, the motors, the electronics, but again, those are available from multiple sources. You're not tied into any one source for those slightly harder to get items, and they're all available online to everybody. The cost of all the materials to put one of these machines together is about 300 quid, so about the same cost as a PC. The working volume of the machine I just showed you is about 140 millimeters squared by 100 high. That's the biggest object that you can make. And it'll work with most standard plastics, though the most common ones that we work with are polylactic acid, which is a plant-derived plastic, or ABS, which is the plastic that's used to make Lego bricks. And it will print at about 20 millilitres now, which means that one machine takes about 1 day to print a complete set of parts for a copy of itself. Those are all technical and financial details which are sort of relevant, but perhaps the most important thing about it is the fact that it's completely open source and free. It's licensed, in fact, under the new general public license, the same license, for example, that's used for Linux. And the reason for that is very simple. When I first thought of the project, it seemed to me to be a potentially quite a powerful idea, and that therefore morally, I hesitate to claim any sort of moral authority, but nonetheless morally it seemed to me one was obliged to give it away, otherwise you create a world of haves, people who have access to it, and have-nots, people who don't give it away, everybody's got access to it. Almost halfway through having that thought, literally 5 minutes after I've had the idea, I realised that you've got to give it away if it copies itself anyway, because if you try and protect something which is self-copying, you're basically saying you want to spend the rest of your life in court trying to stop people doing with your machine the one thing that it was intended to do. People got better things to do with their time, I certainly had. So I gave it all away under a licence that obliges those who improve it also to give it away. Though not everybody does take derivatives of RepRap and give them away. I don't really care about that for reasons that we can perhaps discuss later if we've got time. Here's a random selection of 6 things made by the machine. One of the guys originally on the project, Zach Smith, who went on to found MakerBot, armed in fact with some funds from my wife and me, we own a little bit of MakerBot. Zach Smith set up Thingiverse, which is a website where anybody can share digital designs for objects. And I just went onto Thingiverse and downloaded 6 things at random. Somebody made a drain for a shower tray. There's a quadcopter in the middle of there. A whistle, like a conventional whistle you might buy for a few pence, except this whistle plays a chord. It's actually got 3 separate chambers, so it makes it loud and interesting. A little robot car, bottom left, the sort that might be made in the school robotics project. Children's shoes in the middle, I did those in fact. And a model of a Gothic cathedral at the bottom right there. A wide variety of things. You've all seen 3D printers, I should imagine by now, at least if you haven't, you're probably going to see them this afternoon. These are the sorts of things that 3D printers make. The importance of a technology, though, can be perhaps gauged by how silly and pointless the things are that people make with it. The fact that injection molding, which is currently humanity's single most important mechanical manufacturing technology, is used to make inlet manifolds for the Ford Focus, is perhaps one indication of the importance of injection molding. The real indication of the importance of injection molding is that we bother to use it for making little plastic trinkets to give away in Christmas crackers. That's what shows you that it's a really important manufacturing technology that we can afford to squander it on nothing. Here's an example of something kind of silly that people with RepRaps and similar machines have done. Somebody put up a design on Thingiverse for a seashell, and others realized that if they printed these shells in RepRaps and indeed in MakerBots and other RepRap-derived 3D printers, and threw them over the sides of boats, they would solve a housing shortage, not a housing shortage for human beings. And indeed this picture was taken by a diver some time after some of these had been thrown over the side of a boat. Now, no commercial company is going to set up to make artificial shells for hermit crabs. It doesn't make economic sense. But from the fact that you're all chuckling about it, it makes human sense. And this technology allows people to do that sort of thing, things that are far more important than money and the movement of capital. So, machine that's self-replicating. Because it's self-replicating, if you've got one, you can make one and give it to her, and she can make one and give it to him, and so on. When you've got a machine that can copy itself and can also make lots of other useful stuff, it's like sharing information, except it's for sharing real solid stuff. It's like sharing music, for example, but ultimately for sharing real stuff. This is incidentally a Paddington, basically one of these, making a RepRap machine. Ultimately any stuff, because we're working on putting different materials through it in addition to plastics. Research students making circuitry as we speak in metals and plastics combined, RepRap machine. Here's a picture of the first time the first machine replicated. That's me on the left and Vic Oliver from the project on the right. The very first machine here was the one we built. We built that using parts produced, as you can see, it looks nothing like the current generation of machines. It's much cruder. The parts of that were built in a Stratasys Dimension commercial 3D printer. Obviously, we didn't have a RepRap to make the first one, chicken and egg. And then that machine made the parts for the machine on the right. The machine on the left, incidentally, currently in our laboratory, is shortly to be heading off to the Science Museum. So in 8 years, something's gone from an idea in the back of the foolishness of my head all the way to the Science Museum, which shows something about how quickly things can get outdated these days. If it's a museum piece, before its innovator is even really caught up with what the implications of the idea are, that shows you the pace of the movement, or possibly it just shows you how horribly old I am. When I had the idea, sorry, the text has slightly fallen under the image there. I wasn't really interested in it as a mere commercial proposition. Money is not a very powerful thing in the world. Powerful things in the world are biology. Even more powerful than biology is physics. And if you want to do something interesting, you have to work at the level of power, not at the trivial level of things like rules or money. And a self-replicating machine is all very well, but biologists teach us that a self-replicating entity, in order to exist for a reasonable length of time, has to exhibit what they call an evolutionarily stable strategy. That's to say, in Darwinian terms, it must sit at a Nash equilibrium in the game of life. And the particular evolutionarily stable strategy that I tried to copy with RepRap is the general idea of symbiosis, mutualist symbiosis, the thing that's exemplified in every school lesson about this by the insects and the flowering plants. We all know how that symbiosis works. The plants need the insects to move the pollen around because the plants can't move themselves. The insects don't really need the plants, but they like the nectar the plants produce. The plants don't care about nectar, they only make it to attract the insects. It's a reward system for the insects that help pollinate the flowers. Both species benefit, and that evolved 140 million years ago in the late Jurassic, and it's been going from strength to strength ever since. It's incredibly stable. And I tried to set up RepRap so that it behaved in the same way. The RepRap machine is the analogy with the flowers. It's a machine that is capable of making a set of parts for itself, but it can't do everything, can't put itself together. So it needs an insect to help it, the insect in this case being people. What's the nectar? Well, the fact that the machine produces material goods, which people want. And you'll notice that this relationship involves finance at no point whatsoever. It's a relationship that runs much deeper than that. And so it's something that I tried to set up with the project when I said it. Lots of people have said that this is going to destroy industry. Well, treat that with a very generous pinch of salt. But one of the problems with the word destruction is that it conjures up visions like this. This is a picture of Detroit a few years ago, which you know is not the world's happiest city. And that is indeed a sort of destruction, but it's not. It is local destruction, but it's not a global form of destruction. What's happened to what used to happen in those car manufacturing factories there is that they moved somewhere else, in this case to Swindon, just down the road. And the activity moved. People are still using and buying motor cars. It's just that the economics and the nature of the design and the fact that the people in Detroit didn't get their designs quite right meant that the activity moved somewhere else. But things really do get destroyed, not by that sort of process, but by this process. Funny shaped arrows, translation from OpenOffice to PowerPoint, but never mind, you can see the point. The things on the right replace the things on the left. And the things on the left are never coming back. You can all remember I'm sure, buying rolls of photographic film. Hands up everybody who can remember the last roll of film they ever bought. One at the back, because he's an enthusiastic chemical photographer. There's always one or two. The rest of us. Film? What? Bits of plastic with chemicals on? We don't. And that method of destroying something always works. So will RepRap destroy industry? Well, let's look at how industry progresses. One of the things that we're all aware of in industrial progression is the idea of an economy of scale. We used to make bits of metal using the process illustrated on the left, and then we discovered that by opening up a big factory, it could have a personnel department and an accounts department, and it would all make bits of metal much more efficiently if you separated off these ideas in the old Adam Smith approved way. But things don't always go in that direction. All of our grandparents used to take their dirty clothes, pass them up, and send them off to a central laundry somewhere in the town, and they'd come back a few days later, washed and possibly ironed. Nobody does that anymore, and the reason that people don't do that anymore is that we all have a laundry robot in our kitchens, which is idle for 95% of the time. But because it's a very cheap laundry robot, we don't care that it's idle. It just washes our clothes for us when we need them. And something that's happening at the moment, though it's still not economically quite viable, is the replacement of large economies of scale centralized electricity generation with extremely distributed electricity generation. As I say, the PV cells on the roof don't make electricity quite as cheaply as the power station on the left, but they're getting cheaper all the time. At the moment in rural India, it's cheaper to use PV cells than it is to use a diesel generator if you want electricity. So it is possible to distribute things, so why not manufacture it? If we look to the future, everybody, well almost everybody in the developed world runs their own CD pressing plant, their own photographic laboratory, and their own printing press. Of course they don't look like these items, they look like these things. But we, almost certainly everybody in this room, does those three things in their own home as a matter of course. So why not everybody run their own factory? And if we're going to do that, why don't we make it a factory that makes more factories? Make it even easier to do. What sort of consequences might stem from that, briefly? Well, we might have much less need for this sort of thing. And indeed much less need for this sort of thing as well, because all we're doing is moving ones and noughts down pieces of wire. When we want to make something locally, we don't have to have a truck. We might still have to distribute the raw materials, but then they have to be moved around anyway, so we're not actually increasing that problem very much. Indeed, as I mentioned, almost all of the activities that we just illustrated do of course involve a certain amount of finance. I said the bits and pieces of the machine cost 300 quid. But not very much. So in order to create wealth, we might also have much less need for this stuff. And it becomes possible, maybe, to live a partially comfortable life with much less injection of actual cash. Anyway, that's all really I have to say. If you're interested in seeing more, point your phone at that. And thank you very much indeed.
Stretching your imagination in different directions. Questions?
What's the future of RepRap?
Well, the future is entirely out of my control, of course. Indeed, it's been out of my control almost since I first put the idea on the web. I don't know.
Or what kind of future you want to see? Yeah?
Oh, I don't have any strong desires for where it should go. I regard it more as an experiment. I'm interested to see where it will go rather than direct it. If you ask me for my prediction as to where it's going, there are two short-term things that I think are happening at the moment which will affect the way in which it works. One is making the machine very much easier to assemble. It makes a kit of parts for itself. You need to be an undergraduate engineer to put those parts together. If we can get to the point which we're rapidly approaching, where instead of being a person who's an undergraduate engineer to put those bits together, you're merely a person who is semi-competent at putting IKEA furniture together, then clearly the number of people who can have the machines expands enormously. So that's one direction in which it's going, a Darwinian direction. It's being driven in that direction by effectively selection pressure for successive replication. The other direction in which it's going, I mentioned, is the ability to work with multiple materials, so we can make more objects with incorporated in them lots of different materials, metals, plastics, ceramics, silicon, rubber, all that sort of thing, all in one object, so you can make a functional object in the machine in a single shot. Those are two short-term technical advances which I can see happening with the project. Long-term, I honestly have no idea. It may fail. It may cease to be a sensible way of making 3D printers. We shall have to see. But all I would say is that no one is happier than I when a non-RepRap 3D printer is sold, because of course every non-RepRap 3D printer can make RepRaps. RepRaps make RepRaps, but the non-replicating 3D printers don't make themselves. In other words, they're sterile with respect to their own kind, but not with respect to RepRaps. And you can all see what that does to the population dynamics.
Fascinating talk. Can I ask you two questions? Number one, you talked about self-replication. So do you have any idea about what the diffusion scale of that replication is in terms of population? Number one.
Yes.
That's the RepRap itself. The second thing is, what is it being used to make?
Right.
Clearly you showed me those things, and so what is the footprint of that application area outside its own reproduction?
Okay. The honest answer to both those questions is I don't know, squared, or times two rather. However, there was a guy on the RepRap project, Eric de Bruyn, a few years ago, who did a study on the spread of the machine, and he attempted to do what the biologists call a double labelling experiment, which is how you estimate populations of numbers of animals or plants when you can't count them. He tried to do that with RepRap, and he plotted a graph which, unsurprisingly, perhaps showed it rising in number exponentially. And a couple of years ago, he estimated the numbers as between 5,000 and 15,000. Now, I personally have made 700 or 800 machines for other people. Of course, I'm not a typical person in this regard. So we can, I think, be reasonably confident that there's 20,000, 30,000 out there now. But that's just a guess. What are people doing with it? Well, if you look to Thingiverse, you'll find they're making carrot holders. You had no idea that you needed a carrot holder. You thought that carrots are sort of objects that don't need holding. But if you're a human being who owns a rabbit with a hutch, and you don't want the carrot that the rabbit is eating to get dirty, you print a carrot holder and it holds the carrot and the bars in the hutch, and the rabbit can then eat the carrot without having a shitty carrot. And so, now, apart from the slightly worrying fact that rabbits are actually coprophagic animals, leaving that to one side, the carrot is thereby held in the carrot holder. Seashells for hermit crab, you know. I don't know, and I sort of don't care, because I do know that if I try to anticipate what people will make with a machine, I'll fail miserably. I would never have anticipated either of those two things.
Any more questions? One behind
I had a question and then I was going to make a comment based on what you just said. Yesterday, my 7-month-old son, I was thinking about it because he was eating a carrot.
Oh, right.
And every 3 seconds it would slip out of his hand. I really need to make a carrot holder for him. Washing the carrot.
Type carrot holder at Thingiverse, it'll give you a design.
Yeah. And then secondly, I was that kind of idea of the sort of flow of old arrow of time in that sense. From my personal perspective, I teach, but I'm also a maker. I'm a potter, as well as buying old film. It seems to be very interesting at the moment that being a kind of like essentially a two-man band, that we feel kind of like Luddites to a certain extent in this kind of way in the larger kind of society production. And what I'm interested in is what you might think about how that might then go back and become more cyclical in the sense that modular production is going to go back to a kind of smaller.
Well,
I think that's a possibility.
I think it is a possibility. It's a question of scale. Wolfsburg, where Volkswagen have their plant, was mentioned earlier. And if you ever go there, it's a truly extraordinary place because you're driving possibly from Hanover Airport. And after a while, as you go through Wolfsburg, you realise that for a long time your taxi has been driving you beside a single factory. It is big. But it isn't very big compared with the number of 7 billion human beings. Now, not all 7 billion are going to be making stuff, but you don't need a very big proportion of the population to be making stuff to dwarf the capacities of any industrial company on Earth. 7 billion is a number that people cannot get that. I can't get that. I'm supposed to be a mathematician. I can't get my head around it. So people don't think that they think, oh, industrial manufacturing, lots of people, something no, it's not comparable. It's like trying to compare a pebble and a star. And so I think that it is eminently possible, given the technology, that it will move back to individual production. And I don't think that being a potter is a Luddite, is it?
Well, no. I mean,
perhaps you were just being self-deprecating. But one of the interesting things about technology is the way that even old technologies are retained for their entertainment value. In order to get to the United States, we all used to have to get on a sailing ship if we wanted to. Now lots of people sail, but they don't sail to get anywhere because if they want to get anywhere, they get on a 747. They sail because they enjoy it. The time will come, doubtless, when people drive cars for enjoyment, because all the real cars that are actually doing real work are being driven by computers. Very soon, in fact, it's already happening in Nevada. So as technology increases, the old stuff never gets lost. It just becomes a form of entertainment for use by enthusiasts, and nothing wrong with that.
Questions back?
I've just got one question because I don't have an engineering background at all, so I don't know the properties of the plastics that are used, but how reusable the plastics that you have. So when someone decides I don't want this carrot holder anymore, can they then turn it into a whistle that plays A minor?
Yes, by several different routes. The first thing is that you can, because the machine at the moment works with thermoplastics, that's to say plastics you can melt and reuse, reusable. A number of people have designed plastic grinders, some of which that can actually be printed by the machine itself, that will allow you to recycle the plastic. That will work, for example, for ABS, which is one of the plastics the machine uses. It's a Lego brick plastic. Polylactic acid, PLA, which is the other main plastic the machine uses, is rather more interesting in this context because, as I mentioned, it's a plant-derived polymer. In fact, it's a polymerized sugar, and so it's biodegradable. And so what that means is that if you have a source, in fact, of starch, potatoes or corn or whatever, and you grow it, you can make your own plastic, and when you're tired of your carrot holder, you can throw it on your compost heap and dig it back into your next crop. So you've got a biological route to recycling it, which is entirely local. It never moves more than 10 metres away from where it started. And yet, you've recycled it using natural processes.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Darren?
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Darren Westlake. I'm the CEO and founder of Crowdcube, and we're based up at the Innovation Centre just behind us here. My background is as an entrepreneur. I've been involved in high-tech businesses for most of my life. I've founded and exited 2 high-tech businesses, and Crowdcube's my 3rd business. And throughout my life, I've had what I consider to be lots of great ideas for businesses and other kind of projects. For various reasons, I've never really got those ideas off the ground and turned them into kind of reality, turned them into real businesses. And I think the UK is a great place for innovation and for ideas. And I mean, thankfully, the 2 last speakers have just kind of proved that for me. But I think as a nation, we're great at innovation, we're great at ideas. But I think what we fail to do is cultivate those ideas and really generate those ideas and build upon them and turn them into something really big and turn them into the big businesses that we see coming out of the US, Google, Twitter, Groupon, those kind of businesses. And more often than not, I think there's several reasons for that, but more often than not, there's one big reason that doesn't happen, and you can probably all guess what that is, and it's generally access to money. And that's been a frustration of mine as well, and I thought, well, how can we fix this? What can we do to help entrepreneurs make that leap from having an idea and turning it into a proper business? So I thought, well, let's have a look at the status quo. Let's have a look at the ways that people can raise money at the moment and see what works and what doesn't. So venture capital, everybody would love to get invested by a massive venture capital company and get tens of millions in, but that's not going to happen for the majority of people. And if you're looking for a relatively small amount of money, then they're not going to be interested. Debt finance, well, we all know that people go around bashing the banks at the moment. The banks aren't lending. Small businesses find it difficult to raise finance from the banks, and undoubtedly that is true. Business angels are a great way of raising money. I've used it in the past myself, and I'm really a big fan of the kind of business angel type method. But there's a supply and demand problem there. There's a lot of people looking for money, and there's not a lot of business angels out there that can afford to invest. And typically when they invest in a syndicate of a few people, a handful of people investing tens of thousands of pounds each. So I thought, well, how can we change this model? And I thought, well, what if there was a way to have, say, 5,000 angels investing £10? And what if we could make it so that basically anybody can become a business angel? And that's the concept behind Crowdcube. So what is Crowdcube? Basically, it's an online platform that matches the crowd, so crowd investors, with entrepreneurs. So it does two things. It allows entrepreneurs to raise finance from a new source of money, and it also allows the man on the street to invest in startup businesses, which they've never had the chance to before, because typically you have to be quite a wealthy person to do that kind of thing. So it's got two kind of purposes. And the concept behind the whole thing is this concept of crowdfunding, which hopefully a lot of you will have heard of before. If you haven't, it's very simple. It's just the idea of pooling lots of small amounts of money together to generate one much larger amount of money for a specific purpose. I mean, that in itself is not a new kind of concept, and it's probably been around hundreds of years. However, of course, we now have this great thing called the internet, and in particular, we have social media, which makes it a whole lot easier to spread the word and get more people interested to invest in that one kind of lump sum. So that's kind of the concept of crowdfunding, and there's a couple of examples that hopefully some of you have heard of, sites that are very well established in the crowdfunding space. First of all, there's Kiva.org. I won't go through the numbers, you can read the numbers for yourselves. Kiva's a charity-based site, so basically allows people to invest or lend very small amounts of money, typically $25, to small businesses in emerging and third world countries, and enables them to get a small amount of money, typically a few £100s, just to get their business off the ground, and then they'll pay back their investors over a period of time at that $25. And I've done this, and I've recycled the same $25 about 10 times now in 10 different businesses. So it's a great way of investing and helping people out. Kickstarter is quite different, and I think this is, hopefully, some of you guys will really relate to this. Kickstarter is for arts and creative and film, and music type projects, where, let me give you an example. There's a band and they want to do a new album, and they need £5,000 to record the new album. They've got a few hundred people who like their music already. All these people can come along to the website and come along to Kickstarter. They can see the band on there, see what they're raising the money for. They can put 10 quid in. When they've raised the £5,000 that they want, they get to download that album for free. Well, not for free, but for the 10 quid that they've invested. So it's a way of raising money for creative and artistic projects. And you can see, I mean, the numbers there are huge. These are really well-established sites and really raising some big money now. I'll give you an example of probably the best-known project on Kickstarter. This funded quite recently. This is an e-paper watch. It's a watch that uses the same kind of technology that the Kindle uses, but it connects through to your phone, your Android or your iOS phone, and basically there's various apps that will work between them. And these guys needed, you see here, $100,000, which was basically to get the concepts into manufacturing. And they said, well, if you put in $99 is the first one, you'll actually get one of these things once they've made them. obviously you can see they did a bit better than they expected, and they actually raised $10 million from 68,000 people, which I mean, it's mind-blowing, isn't it, that this actually works this way. And I think these guys got a lot of work ahead of them in the next few months to go through those orders now. But again, proof that this scales up to a very, very high level. So let me tell you a little bit more about Crowdcube. So we've adapted this model, and this model is the rewards-based model that I talked about before. We focus on equity. So we allow businesses to raise money in the same kind of way, but they give away shares in their business, and people invest money, get shares in the business in return. So our website profiles a number of different businesses that are looking to raise money. Each of the businesses are on here, and a little kind of snapshot of what the business is about. And people can come onto our site, sign up, and decide how much money they want to invest in these various different businesses. So for instance, this lady Jem is one of our success stories. She's got an organic salad dressing business. She was doing pretty well when she came to us. She had her products in Waitrose and Sainsbury's. But she needed to expand and grow her business, and she needed £75,000, which she was actually going to do a TV advert with. She's now done, and it's now aired. And she's offered 15% in her business. So basically people came along, had a look at the pitch, decided whether that was of interest to them, and if it was, they can invest simply by typing in the amount of money they want to invest and clicking invest now. It takes them through the kind of purchase process. And one of the key differences in what we're doing is, in difference to traditional funding, is you can invest for as little as £10. So if you want to put 10 quid into this company, you can do. You can get 10 quid worth of shares. So the pitch basically contains all the information, hopefully, that you're going to need to try and decide whether this business is of interest to you or not. So you've got a video there. On the right hand side, you've got some information about the business. Further down, you've got a description here, stuff about Jem herself, pictures of the products. Crucially, at the bottom there's the business plan and financial forecast, so you can read what are their plans, what are their strategies, how are they going to go to market, all those good things, and what do the numbers look like as well. And really, you can make a decision as to whether you want to invest. So hopefully you kind of got the principles of Crowdcube. What are the benefits here for the kind of two sides of the marketplace? There's the entrepreneurs and there's the investors. So for the entrepreneurs, this is obviously a new way to raise finance. You've never been able to raise financing quite this way before. And you can do it on a UK-wide basis. Typically angel networks tend to be quite regionalised. This is a UK-wide. In fact, it goes beyond the UK. It's very easy to promote, so you can use social media, you can use email, you can use Twitter, Facebook, all those things to promote your pitch. It's very cost effective. We don't charge any fees for listing on the site. We only charge fees if you're successful. We charge 5% of the money raised. But again, if you don't raise the money, then you don't owe us anything. And you also have this great marketing effect, because if you've got your business on our website, and we get tens of thousands of hits to our website, and there's lots of people talking about it, and there's lots of PR about it. But you've got lots of people who might end up being customers of yours. They might be suppliers. You might get all sorts of different good contacts out of that. And you also, whether you like it or not, you're going to get crowd feedback as well, because you've got all these eyeballs on your products. People are going to say whether they like it or not, or if they don't like it, why not, suggestions how to improve it, but also positive feedback as well, what they do like about it. So it's a great way of doing kind of market research. For an investor, probably the majority of times people are looking for some kind of financial return. They're not going to put in tens or hundreds of pounds, thousands of pounds, without looking at getting something back for that. But there is a philanthropic approach to it as well, especially on the kind of lower end of the values. People can pretend to be an armchair dragon, so you see dragons down on the telly. This is a way that you can pretend that you're Deborah Meaden or whatever. You can also support your friends and family, and I think this is quite key, is that quite often people really want to support other people, their friends and their family they know who are starting their businesses. And this is a great way to kind of formalise that whole process and pull it all together. You can also participate in these businesses, so it's not just a case of putting some money in and kind of it's somewhere way off. If you took the business I showed you before, if you put a few £100s into that business, you can then go into Sainsbury's and you can see the product on the shelf and kind of touch and feel a business that you've invested in there on the shelf in Sainsbury's. And the last one is about kind of lowering and spreading your risk. So rather than having to put £10,000 or £50,000 into one business, which is quite a big sum into one high-risk business, you can spread that and invest lots of small amounts into lots of different businesses. And as you've seen, it's very simple to invest as well. It's as simple as logging onto the website, typing in how much you want to invest, and going through the purchase process. So a little bit about us. We've been going for nearly 18 months now. We launched February last year. So far we've raised £3.7 million for 21 different businesses. We've got nearly 19,000 members now. The biggest investment was 100 grand. I think 3 people now have invested 100 grand through the site. The average investment is nearly £1,300. And the biggest deal we did was for £1 million. We raised £1 million last December for one company. Dublin Barn were the first company we funded last July. Rushmore was the £1 million deal. We also funded ourselves, so we kind of bootstrapped ourselves for as long as we could, and then we needed some money ourselves, so we thought, well, what better way to do it than to do it on your own website. So we raised some money for ourselves last December. Most recently we've done this company, Escape the City, and they were a bit of a landmark for us because they went around looking to raise finance. They needed roughly £500,000, and 2 high-profile venture capital companies offered them the money. They turned them both down and decided to come with us instead, and they raised £500,000 in a week. So that was huge news for us. And there's a few others there that we were successful with as well. And that's kind of what our numbers look like in terms of how we've kind of grown over the last year. That's pretty much it.
Questions?
As I understand it, I know nothing. There are all sorts of very strict legal requirements on the prospectus that a company needs to put out when it's going to attract investors.
Yeah.
How do you keep track of that, police that, make sure that companies do all the necessary things in that regard?
Prospectuses are only necessary if you're raising more than €5 million. It's a European directive.
Right, I wasn't aware that that was.
So thankfully, most of us who are raising much smaller amounts of money don't get caught up in that horrible bureaucracy.
Okay, that's good.
What made you differ the business model from the Kickstarter? So if I understand correctly, Kickstarter's where you would receive whatever the product might be. Whereas with this, you're taking a certain amount of equity in a company. What made you decide to do it differently?
Well, a couple of things. I suppose first of all that not every company manufactures something that they can actually give as a reward. Secondly, that if you want people to put in substantial amounts of money, so you take the £100,000 that somebody's invested, they're going to do that for a year's supply of widgets. That they want equity in the business for that. When you're looking at proper serious amounts of money for a business, people want shares in the business. They want to see that potential 10 times return in a few years' time. So I think for serious business funding, it has to be equity.
Right. Okay. So with Kickstarter, if you invest more than the product's worth, which some people do. Do they not get anything extra for that? I don't know how
Some people seem to love an idea so much on Kickstarter, they're just willing to put that extra bit of money in. There's that philanthropic approach.
Okay.
Back first. Can you tell me what happens if a deal is oversubscribed? Because presumably they offer a percentage of the business for so much funding.
Well, effectively it can't be, because we have a hard stop. So if you're looking to raise 75,000, when it gets to 69,950 and somebody puts in 50 quid, is that right now? 74,950, somebody puts in the final 50 quid, nobody can put in any money after that, so effectively it can't be.
Stephen?
I'm just fascinated. I think it's a really interesting idea. So, as someone who invests in a company through your site, would I get share certificates?
Yes, they do. Yeah.
And there would be, in due course, those would be, I guess, nominal face value of £1, and there will be dividends, and in the normal course of
as you would in any other way that you would invest. Have
people started to trade in these shares?
Not yet. That's something that we're looking to develop. Maybe in a year or two's time, when we've funded enough businesses and they're substantially worth more than they were when we funded them, to make that model work. But yeah, we're looking at a secondary market.
The next slide. How's your business model different to Funding Circle, for example?
Funding Circle is about debt, so it's about loans to businesses. Ours is about equity. That's probably the major difference between us. So you go on Funding Circle, you can loan somebody £6,000 and they'll pay you back over a period of time with 5-6% interest rate. Whereas ours is a long-term, long-term play to get a 5-10 times return. If you're that lucky to pick the right business, they will give you that.
Behind, yeah.
Well, what's the success rate for companies? And do you screen the companies that you're? Do you have to take a view on whether you think they're viable?
Good question. Yeah. So we, as you might imagine, we get a lot of requests coming through. We reject 75% of them, I'm afraid to say. Normally because they are just not investment ready. So what we really look for is, can the business present themselves in a really credible way on the site to those 20,000 people who are interested. So have you got a really comprehensive and well-written business plan that's thorough? Have you got financials that all add up and make sense? And the reality is that most businesses, a lot of people have got ideas, but they haven't really got to the stage where they can really do that yet. What we don't look at is, is your business going to be a success? I mean, you take the businesses we have here today, I don't understand anything about them. I couldn't pretend to know whether they would be a success or not, but the crowd probably can. So amongst the crowd, you probably have all sorts of different kind of experts, and we let the crowd decide whether they want to invest or not. That's not our decision.
And so what's the businesses that you've listed so far, what's the success rate from their point of view?
About 10% of the ones that list on Crowdcube actually are successful in raising their money.
Just around the back.
I just see there seems to be, in the last year to 18 months, a whole slew of crowdfunding companies popping up. I was just wondering how you guys are sort of staying ahead of the market in that sense, because obviously there's only so many. It's a platform at the end of the day. You can't really differentiate a lot between them, and then you have sort of more holistic ones and then more specialised ones. I was just wondering where you see the market going in terms of whether you think it will fragment. For example, Publish focus on authors and getting books published. Whether you think people will get a lot more niche, or whether you think it will revert to an overall overarching with specific categories within a website?
I think, well, to kind of explain a bit further, we are obviously crowdfunding for equity. We were the first site in the world to do crowdfunding for equity. We now have one competitor in the UK who launched a couple of weeks back. But I mean, we get approached all the time from people saying, I've got this great idea that we could do your site, but do it for this particular niche market. And we're a small company ourselves, so we can't kind of go off and do all these things. But I do see in the future, particularly when the regulation gets a bit easier to deal with, which has been a big bugbear of ours for the past 18 months, lots of sites aiming at particular niches setting up, and probably being successful in their own little niches. But there'll be sites like ours, which are kind of a catch-all site as well, which will probably be kind of dominant, I would imagine, and that's what we're hoping anyway.
Okay, thank you very much. The guys from ModmyPi, which is in the agenda, it's a good excuse not to be here, but they're up in Swindon on giving a sales pitch, which came up at the last minute. So I'm going to attempt to go through, I'm not Jacob Marsh, you may know already, but I'm going to attempt to go through Jacob's presentation. I do know a bit about what they went through, and I did mention this project a little bit before about Creative Lab and Calm's kind of their influence and how they assisted these guys. But so yeah, Jacob Marsh is the director. I've got a feeling he's going to. Yeah, so we're going to talk about these things. This is the second time I've seen this presentation in the past 20 minutes. So we're going to give an introduction. I guess this is talking a bit about Jacob and the group that was involved in this. And then the Raspberry Pi is a product. So their product is basically a case for this Raspberry Pi. They call it modmypi. They've got a website set up for that. Probably some step-by-step on how what the development process was, and kind of where they see the future of the company going. So yeah, not a little bit about me, but a bit about Jacob. So he's, I think his colleagues as well, they're all in master's year. So yeah, he's a civil engineer.
He's graduating this year, I believe, and it was back in March when they started off this company. And yeah, we got approached around that time, I think, wasn't it, Liang? We had an event, it was kind of, I think it was a co-creation event, basically, when we were setting up the creative lab. We wanted to see, kind of, get people's feedback on what kind of service it would be and what people wanted. And these guys turned up, Jacob with some of his colleagues, and said they had this idea. And a lot of what they needed was just to get some prototypes out. They'd already set up this kind of website. And yeah, for developing these, and they worked on the development of these cases for the Raspberry Pi. I haven't seen that number before, but yeah, they've just hit 10,000 orders by the sounds of it. So what is a Raspberry Pi? That's a Raspberry Pi. So it's this kind of credit card sized mini computer thing where you can plug stuff in like a monitor and a keyboard. And you can do a lot of things like Excel and word processing and play HD videos apparently and stuff like that. So yeah, you can imagine that this was quite a big innovation, and I think yeah, they've been selling massively. Like yeah, the back orders are quite big at the moment. So what these guys came up with, where did they fit in? Is they had an idea. They had this product idea. So this is the case that they came up with. So they initially set up, they just did some 3D models, and they made some rendered images and stuff, and got a nice picture up on their website. So I believe, I didn't know, they took it to some customer forums or something, and got an idea of how much they were willing to pay. I'm not sure how much it was. I think it was definitely under £10. So it was about, I think it was about £7 or £8, this product. So then they went through these sorts of questions. Is it viable? They went for a 50% profit margin or something, and how many they can sell. I believe they originally looked into some very complex designs, and also maybe some personalization of that as well. There was the idea that you could maybe have some initials on the case. But this is the product that they came out with. So yeah, they looked at, I don't know, they went through this kind of marketing mix, looking through it, went onto the tech websites, and again you can see an image of the part here. So in there, we were quite amazed when we heard about this. There were 200 orders, so when the website went live, they got 200 orders in the first 24 hours. Bearing in mind at this stage but they didn't really have any idea of how they were going to produce it. They didn't have any money for tooling or anything like that. They were just like, let's get some pre-orders on the go. So they're taking money for these as well, money for the pre-orders. And yeah, there was just, speaking to the guys, they were amazed. We were too, at just the amount of interest that they got quickly. Well timed, I think. Like this Raspberry Pi was just coming out, and people, when you look at the Raspberry Pi, designing a case for it is quite a good idea, because it's essentially just a board. And then yeah, they got a lot of interest through this. So they chose to use pre-orders as finance for this. So these were some of the things they looked into. So they approached Calm for some prototyping needs. So at Creative Lab, we produced some of the initial ones through our FDM process. We got some better quality prototypes, which they could use for functional testing through Calm, I believe. They went over to the Innovation Centre, which is just over here, where I believe they're now set up. And they approached the manufacturing advisory service as well. I think this was looking into the certain funding opportunities for SMEs for the tooling costs. I don't know, 50% of the tooling costs or something like this. And they also looked into crowdfunding apparently. So they had their design. They knew that they eventually established that they were going to go for injection molding. The volumes that they were at made sense, really. I think they got rid of the idea of putting this personalisation on there. People were happy with the product as it was. So they bought a RepRap machine, The idea was at these early stages where they could just get some parts out to customers and get them testing. They do a certain amount of low volume manufacturing and some prototyping with these RepRap systems. And they also use CALM, as I say. And I think from here, they went on to tooling. So you can see the tooling that they've got here. So within a month, they got the prototyping done. They got through this process fairly quickly, really. I remember them coming into Liang's office when they just got, they hit like thousands of orders and they looked pretty scared about what they were going to do next. But they kept their heads and they got some assistance from the services of the uni, and they were able to get through this process relatively quickly. And I know they got their tooling done quite recently. We'll just go back to this. So yeah, I think it was last Monday they got their first injection molding parts, and now they're going through the process of sending these out. And it'd be worth seeing in the corner over there. They've got some of these parts that have come out, and you can see some of the different colours and stuff and the different designs they offer. So apparently this is what's next. They're looking at new designs. What they didn't put in here, I think, as well, is that they also offer some of the supported products for the Raspberry Pi. So things like little keyboards and little monitors and stuff like that. And they've set up the channels for ordering them and distributing them to customers. So by the looks of it, this is their new product, some sort of cooling system on it. And they've got a really good team as far as like very creative bunch. So I can imagine that their next product will be equally successful. So in summary, in this presentation, hopefully you've got an idea of how the process that they went through. I'm hoping that these guys should be back in an hour or two, back soon actually. So you'll be able to ask them any questions about the product and the process when we get there. Thank you.
Well done.
Yeah, so thanks, Steve. They did this challenge job, but I think this is very interesting case for students to have ideas and become an entrepreneur in a pretty short of time period. I think that's one very interesting element related to this workshop. I think I just give a very brief summary and what I'm looking in future. Then we move to the more informal session about demonstration, and also where this Friday some of you will be looking forward to go back soon. Yeah, I think firstly I'd like to say thank you to the people, particularly Simon and Charlie helped with organize this workshop, and also other people surround to support this. Then thanks to all the speakers contribute time and expertise. I think really an interesting workshop. We can come out different discipline, different aspect looking at innovation, business, technology. Lastly, thank all of you attending this workshop, make this happen. I quite enjoyed this workshop. I think this connection between the people and technology and the business, and then we can see the opportunity for people to create product, to become running the business and the investors as well. So I hope you also enjoy this workshop and it's worth of your time. In the outlook, I think this is our first workshop we organized, and really appreciate the university and also associated EPRC Digital Project provide some finance for us to do that. Hopefully we will investigate whether we can run continually annually basis. Second thing, we really love the chocolate creation. We will show a little bit stuff soon, and we wish we can bring more chocolate innovation to you in the future, and you can enjoy the product. But chocolate for ourselves is, of course, it's our passion, it's our business. But I think it's a case study. Actually, the key is the 3D, is the chocolate connected with 3D and all the digital technology business around that. Yeah, and we can see the connection with chocolate with any other things. So I think that is part of in terms of research and business aspect. We will see the connection between the chocolate and the 3D printing or the creativity. I think chocolate for us is case and the starting point, but we want to this starting point to a level, then transform to other aspect. So we hope in that stage we can bring more researchers, practice, business coming together to share that experience. Okay, thanks very much. So we will move to the next more informal demonstration, and some of you later will go to the camp. Again, thanks camp for presenting tour for us. Okay, thank you very much.